Well, welcome back to Unfinished Business. This is a space where we have candid conversations about what it really looks like to build a business from the ground up, how success gets defined, and the lessons it takes to reach success, and all the work that's never quite finished. And this is our monthly segment in the middle of mastery, where I get to invite you into your own personal coaching session with business coach Rory Shepherd to explore concepts that will help you improve your business. And today's conversation holds merit for anyone in a leadership position, whether you are an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. Something that we've all in a leadership position have come to understand is just because someone reports to you or you have a title does not mean that they're following you. And just because you have authority doesn't mean that you have influence. So, Rory, I want to start right there.
Okay.
When I say those words, authority and influence, how do you define them? And to you, what is the difference between them?
So I think you used some of the words that I would associate with that, right? So authority is probably title based or position based. So I have authority because structurally where I am on the org chart or who reports to me or kind of where I fit in the organization would be my authority. The roles, the responsibilities, the accountability that has been given to me organizationally. Influence would be those things that I do or where I have more kind of influence or sway because of my experience, my knowledge, my relationships. Those kind of spaces would dictate more in that influence space as opposed to authority. I've been in a lot of organizations and worked with people that did not manage with their title or with the position they were on the org chart, but got lots of things done because they had great relationships. They had great connectivity. They understood how to get things done and do it in a way that felt good to everybody.
Can you tell me
Normally,
more about that? Can you
yeah. So
share a
normally
story about someone?
when we, a lot of times we associate authority with do it because I told you to, or do it because I'm your boss, and that's only good for so long. I think when I do it with influence or through relationship, it should not have a negative feeling at the end, and oftentimes authority may have a little bit of overtones of do it because I said to do it or I told you so. I mean, and I've coached a lot of people in or against the idea of using someone else's title or authority to get things done. I shouldn't come to you and say, we need to get this done because Kimberly's our boss and Kimberly wants it done. Because then I've eliminated all of my own influence and authority, and I don't have a voice because I gave you all that. I gave Kimberly the voice, not me. And so I think because the CEO wants it is not the reason to do things, or it shouldn't be the reason why I'm giving my team the instruction to say we need to do this because the CEO wants it or the boss wants it. Because then I have yielded all my power to the boss and I don't have any. And so I would much rather spend time in conversation about this is the task that we need to do and how are we going to get that done without saying this is the task that Kimberly wants done.
So is that just a learning curve of using different language?
Well, and I think it's a mindset of you're not doing it for me or I don't think this is a something that we need to do or should do or want to do. And so I'm laying the blame at the foot of the boss instead of taking accountability on my own. And so I think there's also a mindset piece there. I mean, language helps, right? And
Yeah.
eliminating the words of we're doing it because Kimberly wants it done. But I think part of that is also I need to buy in that that is the thing that we need to do and have that conversation with you. And if I'm not bought in, I need to have that conversation with my boss before I start going out and assigning that task.
Mm.
I, right? I mean, part of that is the managing back up to go, okay, I will absolutely get done what you need to get done, but what's the why behind it? What's the motivation behind that? Where's the value statement for us so that I can explain that to my team? And that should be an open conversation that we can have.
Yeah. So I can see where that would be easy for someone who is wide minded. who needs to know. Like that to me seems that process of kind of managing on both sides, like you said, managing up and managing not down, but to
Right. Yeah.
I guess down if you're looking at it from a flow chart. But if you're not wide minded, if you're just task oriented, let's say, like that's definitely me. I see a list. I want to execute on the list, right? And I'm especially in my early years, I was driven to do that, to complete things. So I think I definitely fit into what you were saying as far as, well, this is just this is what needs to be done. So I didn't even stop to think other people might be asking why, let alone use terminology that doesn't, take away my own authority.
Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I can see that and I can understand it, right? And then I think, for you, probably more often than not, if you saw it as a task that needed to be done, then you didn't see any reason to push the blame off onto the boss, right? It's just a task that needs to be done. So, I mean, I think your languaging was probably good from the start. Then it gets into how do you effectively influence even on those people that you have authority or control in their career, right? I mean, what are you doing to make sure that, and I'll throw out the word, but I think it truly is based on trust, right? The way that influence works, the medium that we exchange in is trust. And so how do I maintain trust, but then how do I build trust over time?
Well, we're skipping past a little bit of the conversation, but since we're here, when I was reflecting on this and preparing for the last discussion that we had about trust, we learned trust was a really big word.
Yeah.
And what you shared was that's when we say, I don't trust you, all that does is create defensiveness
Right.
from the other side,
Yeah.
right? And then you shared something very, to me, very like mind blowing is that what we're really saying is that trust is a lack of, or that you value three buckets. And you said competence,
Yeah.
care, and then remind us of the third one so that we
So
can break down what trust actually is and means.
yeah, so I would start with there has to be, this idea of reliability, right? So I have to understand, I mean, you do what you say you're going to do. And then absolutely competence. Do I believe that you can do the things that you say that you're going to do? But then do you care about me? So is there a value statement that says, you care? But then there is another one that's that genuineness or authenticity, that my words and my actions align. So I need to be authentic, true to myself, but I also need to, there's a genuineness there that says, when I say this, my words and then the actions that you're going to get from me, they align. And so that's kind of the full body of trust. And so when we talked last time, we talked about the thin book of trust in those four domains. I have gone back and another book, Stephen M.R. Covey. So the Seven Habits son. So Stephen Covey's son, Stephen M.R. Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust that goes into a lot of detail around, if I lose trust, how do I regain it? And so, how do I repair that quickly? Right. So every, and there's way too many points in that book for me to remember them all, but my mistakes, immediately apologize, being genuine or authentic or open, right? Being transparent. Those are all things that build trust. But back to those kind of four major domains of how do that's the currency that we're playing in, right? Is with trust. And so how do I consistently invest in others in a trusting way where I trust them and they trust me? Kids at age 2 can see right through it if you don't trust them, right? And so
Mhm.
like some of the things that we were talking about before we started recording. I mean, when kids get quiet, we go find them. When toddlers get quiet, we go find them. But that can be at 2 or 12 or 18, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's that indicator, and then they go, "Why don't you trust me?" And it's normally because you're not doing something that I should trust. They can turn those tables on us, and they got, "You're not telling me the truth." You're not you're not being honest with me. You're not being upfront, transparent, right? There's something else going on. And our teams can see that immediately. So a huge mistake that I mean I've seen made over and over again is just where I don't take the time, back to the I don't invest in you emotionally because I'm trying to breeze through to the next thing, right? I've got a task list that's got 23 things on it. I need to have a what I think should be a 30-second conversation with you about this task when what you really need is a 3 to 5 minute conversation. But
Yeah.
when I only have 30 seconds and not 5 minutes, you go, you don't really care, right? You don't, I see a gap um, in your skill set and you're going, no, I'm just being really busy. I'm trying to be efficient.
Hmm.
But the best leaders find time to slow down and invest in their teams.
Okay, so that's one I was going to ask. You've been a part of many leadership teams, so you've seen it done really well and you've seen it done not so well and maybe even poorly. But what are three words that describe, someone who is a very influential leader?
Wow. I think about some of the best leaders that I've had and think about the things that are the most consistent across them. And not just to cop out and go back to some of the words that we've already used, but in a lot of cases, there's an extremely high level of competence, knowledge about the business, how it works, the detail, right? So it's not a surface level understanding of the task that we're talking about or the work that we're doing, I mean, they know the business. And so when we think about, especially in the smaller business entrepreneur space, right? I mean, you know, having the knowledge and understanding how the business works is key, but that would be one. Two, there's pretty consistently there is a deep, genuine interest in the people that work for them. We probably talked about this in the past, but it's one of my favorite stories is we had a leader very highly technically skilled, but got feedback that he did not engage with his team, didn't have conversations, didn't know his team, and one of the kind of coaching things that he was given was you just need to pick a day where you walk around and talk to the team, engage with them, ask them about how their weekend was or what they got planned for the next weekend but you need to engage with them in something other than work conversations. So he took the advice, but he did not engage, right? And so
What does
he
that
would
mean?
so he
He
would
took
walk
the
ar
advice
he
but
would
didn't.
so he'd walk around on Monday mornings was his practice, and he would go to everybody's office and say, "Hey, Kimberly, how was your weekend?" And not pay attention at all to your response, right? And so the team I mean, they picked up on it. I mean, again, almost immediately. And so if you were that leader, you would come to me and you'd say, "Hey, Rory, how was your weekend?" And I would say, "Well, I've got 2 boys, very engaged in baseball. So we spent most of the time, at the baseball park this weekend. One son had 3 games, the other one had 2, but we were at the ballpark pretty much all weekend." And so he would acknowledge that and say, I've got a boy that plays baseball too. And then the next weekend, you would come to my office and you'd ask me again, how was your weekend? And I would say, I've got 2 daughters. They're both in dance, so, my 2 girls, they're the world to me. I've only got the 2 girls. We spent the whole time at a dance recital. And he would not correct me or say, I thought you had 2 boys, or what happened to the boys at baseball? I mean,
He just, yeah, glossed completely over.
because he didn't care, right? I mean, and so there was no connection or there was no relationship that was being built. He was going through a rote practice that somebody had given him to say, "This is what you need to do to get better."
Yeah.
What do you think he did? He got worse, right? Significantly worse because the team was like, "This is crazy. We can tell him anything." And he doesn't flinch, doesn't correct us, doesn't I mean, and I'm overblowing the story a little bit, but I mean, it was almost to that degree, is that
Yeah.
you could tell him anything 1 week after the next, and it didn't shift his reaction or deepen the relationship at all. And so competence would be one, or just kind of knowledge about the business. Deep emotional caring about the team would be another. And then a third would be, I think, and it may be the most important, is a very high sense of humility. And it's not all about me. It's not all about how I look, but it's how we perform as a team. A humility also in kind of back to some of the competence thing of not saying I know everything or not acting like I know everything because I think I'm the boss and I have to fill that spot. And we've talked about that in the past. But,
Mhm.
you know, being humble, owning my mistakes, being transparent, but very deep sense of humility. And so if I were going to give you 3 words, it would be those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of go I'm curious about this leader, like, finish the story. I mean, so did he stay? Did what were the symptoms of that leadership experience within the organization?
So, I mean, almost an immediate loss of credibility with his team, from a relationship point of view. Still, I mean, he was great technically and had good sense around the tasks and the thing that his team needed to do, but there was almost zero relationship there. And I can tell you the story because I wasn't in his department, but people came and talked to me about it, right? And so that kind of bleeds over into other areas. And so he did not stay. I mean, he probably stayed 18, 24 months past that point, right? But it wasn't a long-term stay. I can't tell you trajectory wise, did he correct that in his next job or not? I don't know. I know that in pretty quick succession, there was at least two jobs, two companies after he left us. But a lot of times when you leave the job that was really the best job in the world for you, whatever you go to, the next one is not going to last very long because it's not going to be anywhere close to that best job. But I know for sure he changed positions a couple of times, businesses and what he was doing. But I've had other folks that worked for me that burned a lot of bridges and in fact used that hammer of the CEO wants this and played that hand way too hard. And so people did not want to work with them, didn't want to engage with them. And even when they changed, right, and they quit using that as a hammer and started trying to be more relational and engaging with others, they burned way too many bridges. And so they weren't going to be trusted. But when they got to their next job, I mean, they took that to heart and exceeded and excelled in the next company that they were with. Right. I mean, so I would see that as a success story of around somebody that took the feedback, realized what they had done, and then said, in the next one, I'm not going to do that.
Certainly. Do you think I mean, this goes back to many conversations that we've had, but I mean, do you think that at the heart of it, it almost takes an experience like that to become a great leader?
I wish I could say no. Right. I mean,
I know. You
I
hear
really
all of these
do.
things and you want I mean, I think I guess what's coming to my mind is anything I believe the best about people. I believe there's way more good out there than there is bad. And I believe most people have the right intentions. But as I'm hearing, and this is why we call it kind of the messy middle. This
Right.
is exactly what
Yeah.
we're discussing. Like it does take time to one, develop trust. That doesn't happen overnight. So, I'm thinking about my own experience. I got plopped into this position because I was good at something else. Knew nothing about leadership. And thank goodness that I had a great above the line leadership team who knew to invest in me. So that was my personal experience. But a lot of people don't have that. And so what I'm hearing you say by sharing that story is, or what I resonate with is, man, that person was just getting in there. Again, maybe not being why oriented, maybe the stress of that first position or trying to do a good job, maybe it clouded who that person really was, but ultimately taking an experience that it sounds to me like he got kind of one shot and then had to move on to something else. But the good part, like you said, the success part is that he learned from it and chose differently the next time. But I'm just sitting here wondering, like, if it's even possible to get to that level without sitting in that. And that doesn't mean that it works out to where you get fired or you move on
Right.
or whatever, but
Right. Yeah.
it takes mistakes, don't you think?
Yeah, and so I think part of that is as a leader of leaders, right? Or as a leader of managers, right? I don't need to be 100% paternalistic and prevent you from going in the ditch, but I need to keep you from going off the cliff, right? And so,
Yeah. So what's the difference? What would that look like? If there were some things, I'm gonna let you go in the ditch, what are
yeah,
some examples of that versus examples of this is off a cliff?
yeah. So, you know, flat tires versus, fatal accident, right? But,
Yeah.
and so what do those look like or feel like in kind of leadership or in the trust space would be if I go back to the leader that, let's say it's really where their trust issue is around that care component, right? And so even though I can say all the right things and do all the right things for you, really the motivation for you being successful is really for me to be successful, right? So it's all about how I appear as opposed to how good you're doing or your advancement because I, as the leader, want to appear successful. The team is going to feel that as you don't care about me. Right. And so, as the leader of that leader, what's going in the ditch versus, going off the cliff, it could be, the going off the cliff can be stepping up and taking all the credit and say, I did this as opposed to we did this. In large organizations, we see this all the time where the leader, let's say very large organization, top line leader knows Kimberly's team did the work, but they just talk about Kimberly. And, Kimberly got this done for me, right? You as Kimberly need to say, love that you're giving me credit, but I have a group of people that got it done for me as well, right? And it was my team that got it done. And these are the names of the people that made that happen, right? And so the going off the cliff is just going, I got it all done. I'm the one that did it, right? Young leaders early in a career trying to make a spot, right? Oftentimes we raise our hands and say, we did the work
Yeah.
when that wasn't it. And so how do you back off from that is at least acknowledge, right, that yes, my team did that, right? I led the team that did that. Ultimately, I would like it to be to where that everybody knows that the reason why my team was successful is I was a great leader, but they're the ones pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, doing the things, right? And so,
It's almost like when you get married, having to exchange the word I for we, you know?
yeah,
And I was thinking as you said that, so yeah, example of a big cliff of even that slightest difference, you have no idea the impact that that makes because it's almost like a small fire, a small spark that spreads like wildfire, you know?
right. Because
The
your team
word
is going to go,
travels about
yeah.
that.
And your
Yeah.
team's going to go, what am I, chopped liver? Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was the one that worked 80 hours the last 3 weeks to get that done. Right. I
Yeah.
mean,
Exactly.
I talked to you, you were on the baseball field, right? I mean, whatever it is. I mean, I was working while you were out on the golf course, right? I mean, yet you're taking all the credit, right? I mean, talk about violation of trust, right? And so,
Okay, so
you know,
love
you-
it. So cliff,
yeah,
avoid that cliff. What's
yeah.
another?
I think about, and again, I think it's in some cases it could be in the reliability space, but I think about ditches versus cliffs on if I as a leader was assigned a task and I didn't follow through and I didn't do the things that I needed to do. But when somebody asks me why it wasn't done, I turn around and lay blame with a vendor or a supplier or somebody on my team. That's another huge cliff, right? I mean, because just like you said, small fire versus wildfire. I mean, that thing spreads so fast is that I didn't I didn't hold accountability and I laid blame at the feet of somebody else, even if it was my fault or wasn't my fault. I, as the leader, should take accountability to say, we did not deliver on. Yeah. And there can be another conversation later with your team going, I took the bullet, right? But we have got to get this done. If it was really a mistake on the team's part, but the taking the blame or taking the bullet in the moment or laying the blame at somebody else's feet in the moment either wins or loses trust about as fast as anything you can do.
Do you think it's a leader's job to accept the blame?
If it was my accountability or even if it wasn't, yeah. And then have a
I'm
coaching
thinking
conversation
when
with my team, right? I mean, because ultimately I am responsible to deliver on those things that my team is accountable to deliver. And so, I have a number of times in IT, I had teams and I had developers and programmers where my team would make a mistake, right? And in the moment, if somebody on, my customer or my boss is yelling at, who's to blame for this? Heads need to roll. My common response was, we need to fix the problem first. There's plenty of time to do the autopsy later, right? I mean, we got to get this thing fixed first. And more than likely, whoever is to blame is probably the best person equipped to fix it. So let's get the problem fixed. And then we can have that conversation, right? But I'm going to take accountability as the leader and say, yeah, we failed to deliver on that. Now, if my
we
team member fails multiple times, then it's on me as a leader to either coach them, get them skills, or, promote them to customer, as we say, right? But move them out if it's a consistent problem. But that's a leadership or management issue on my part if I wasn't making sure they were delivering, right? I mean, I never can abdicate responsibility and accountability if it was mine to start with.
yeah.
I still have to hold it.
I'm hearing two things on that because one, I'm thinking if you take the bullet, as you say,
Yeah.
whether deserved or not, right? But your role, the position that you've been given, you are the shield, for the team, the first line of defense. So like it to me, it sounds like that is the responsibility of a leader. But also to be back to what you said about humility being such a component to building trust. If you go to your team and say, "Hey, you guys, I did take the bullet and we failed and we've got to figure this out." I'm thinking as a person, as the team member, how much that would mean to me. I'd go fight like heck
Yeah.
to get it done the next time because somebody went to bat for me. It's the law of reciprocity, right? So it kind of in action. So I'm thinking, wow, that's the quickest way to build trust too, is accept the failure, take responsibility, and then go to the team and say, let's reroute.
But I can't just go, I took the bullet. Don't ever let that happen again. It's
Right.
what do we have to do? What do we have to do to not
Right.
get in that position again? I was talking to a client earlier this morning and was recounting a story from years ago when I was working at HEB, and it was one of those issues where it wasn't somebody that reported to me. It had nothing to do with me, but I was the one that had to fix the problem. And we actually broke payroll at HEB, and payday was Friday. Everybody got their check. Direct deposit and checks were delivered on Friday. And because of an issue with a tax update, we messed up 60,000 checks, had to cancel that payroll run and run it again. And
Oh my goodness.
we didn't we didn't finish by Friday. And so we didn't get everything done until Saturday afternoon. And I mean, it was horrible. I went to work on Wednesday, regular work day, and I didn't leave the building until Saturday afternoon. Worked 3 days straight trying to fix this issue that we had with payroll. And I got called into the senior executive meeting on Monday morning as the face and the accountable person for this payroll mistake. Right. And the conversation was very one sided. I was only in there for about 45 seconds, but I've had this executive meeting. I've been the president of this company for 28 years. I've had this meeting every Monday morning for 28 years, and we have never talked about payroll in this meeting.
Ouch.
And right, I just want to make sure that we're clear. We are never going to talk about payroll again. And I had to say, yes, sir, turn around and walk out of the room. Right. I mean,
Ew.
and I took it, I mean, as personal as I could and said, at whatever it takes over the next 6, 8, 9 months, I'm going to make sure that even if that issue ever came up again, we could recover and not miss a payroll on Friday. Right. And so me and another guy in IT that spent nights and weekends testing, playing, trying to figure out ways to make it to where that we could run payroll, 3 times before Friday morning and still make it, right? As opposed to only having one shot. But
Sheesh.
I think, I never, and in that instance, I never even really had a one-on-one conversation with the person that made the mistake. I had a conversation with their boss, right? And just said, we can't ever be in this spot again, right? I mean, so what processes, system checks, what are you going to do to make sure that we don't make that kind of mistake again?
Was it one person's action in that story? Okay. So
Yeah.
then how did that you have the so you didn't even have the direct conversation. You had a conversation with their boss. How did that work?
I mean, there was a lot of, again, like I said, we spent months after that to prevent those kind of issues happening again. But I think from a system process kind of checks and balances on the IT side to prevent that problem from happening again. I mean, the person that caused the error had responsibility to create the process to make sure that it didn't happen again. Right. So message received, actions were taken. Right. I mean, all the right things were done. But yeah, and in all truth and actuality, right? Had that person they would not have gone to that Monday morning meeting with the executives, right? I mean, they would have they would have wilted and quit before they went in there, right? I mean, that was not an environment that they should have ever even been in, right? So I mean, it was appropriate for me to go take the bullet, as we say, right? I mean, they were young, didn't understand what they did and didn't understand what the implications of it were, right? I mean,
Did they stay?
yeah.
So what did that, in hindsight, how do you think that had an impact on you being your trust with your team?
I think the 2 sides of that, one was the willingness to stay until it was fixed, you know, for those that understood and knew it, right? I mean, Janet was bringing me changes of clothes, right? I mean, so at least I wasn't in the same clothes on Saturday afternoon as I was on Wednesday morning, but so some people didn't know that I hadn't slept in 3 days, but I mean, my core team did, and so, I mean, that above and beyond kinda sets a tone in a different way with the team.
Mhm.
And
What did
then
it feel like? What did your I mean, because again, kinda going back to that situation, it's like, you see something like that, the ones that did know, I would imagine word traveled fast. If
yeah,
everyone didn't know, that's fine, but the people that did need to know probably found out one way or another.
yeah,
What
and so th
what did
then it
the
was
what
like,
did your team feel like after that incident for you?
can't tell you to a person that they would run through a brick wall, but I think most of them would, right? I mean, because there wasn't anything I wasn't willing to do to be successful, right? I mean,
And I know you're so humble and you don't probably makes you feel uncomfortable, but I think it's important for people listening, again, whether you're the boss or whether you're a leader of other leaders inside an organization. I think it's important that those emotions, like how that felt
yeah,
for you, like you said, that they would run through a brick wall.
yeah,
Those
but I
words
also
being used, that creates exponential growth,
yeah,
like
I think
growth that you can't even equate to dollars.
yeah, I think the downside, the negative dark underbelly of that is when I create situations to be the superhero, right? And so when you manufacture that where I have to come in and save the day, right? I mean, that's a false sense, right? And then they go, we're just creating issues, right? So that they can come in and save the day. So there can be a negative to that. And I mean, I've worked with people that would much rather, say I'm best under pressure or best in a crisis. And so they would kind of create their own crisis so that they could save the day in the end. And
So
that's,
you're
I mean,
saying that can become a tactic to I mean, that would have never occurred to me because in your story, it just sounds
no, I mean,
authentic.
I didn't create it, right? But I mean, I do
Yeah,
know people that do that, right? I mean, and like being able to say, I worked all night on this, or I had to pull an all nighter to get this done so I could deliver it for you.
okay. Yeah, I've
And
worked with people like that too.
right. And your team does not respect that, right? I mean, they'll respect it once or they'll respect it every time that it's genuine, but they don't respect it when you failed to plan or you didn't put systems and processes in place or you put systems in place to generate the crisis so that you can save the day again. That's a negative. But
Fair point.
when it's real, when it's genuine, when it's we'll do anything to be successful, creates a sense of pride and I'm connected and I'll run through brick walls, right? I mean, all that can happen. The database administrator that I worked with for 9 months after that. I mean, Tim and I had a phenomenal relationship because he knew that, I was running jobs that, getting up at 1 and 2 in the morning to kick another set of things off so that he and I could test it in the morning. Right. I mean, and so our relationship got really, really tight because we had a common goal that says, we can't let payroll fail ever. Right. We've got to do the things that we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. And so our relationship got stronger because we had that common bond on, we're going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah,
When it's real, it's huge and it's positive. When I manufacture it, it goes the other way.
yeah. I think it's funny what you're talking about in big organizations and, much smaller. Maybe that story wouldn't have quite the same impact if this was a smaller size business.
Well,
But
let me give you one. So,
yeah,
a small distribution company leader had a meeting with a potential client in Nashville, and they both had flights back to the Panhandle, separate flights, separate airlines coming back. The potential client made the transfer in Dallas to land in Lubbock, but the leader of the organization didn't get to Dallas in time and missed the transition, and so was stuck in Dallas. As opposed to calling the client and saying, "Hey, look, weather was bad. I didn't make it." They got to Dallas at 11 o'clock and rented a car and drove to Lubbock and met the potential client the next morning at 6:30 for breakfast. Right. And then the client said, so I was really worried about making it. I was worried about the weather. I didn't think we were going to make it. I made it with 5 minutes to spare. I guess you did too. And the leader had to say, no, I didn't. Right. I didn't make my flight. And he goes, well, how did you get here at 6:30 this morning? And he said, you as a potential client are important to me. So I rented a car and I drove. And small business could have been very understandable from a client's perspective to say, well, I understand you didn't make your flight, but guaranteed that client became a client, right? Went from potential to client because somebody was willing to do whatever it took to make an appointment at 6:30 for breakfast. Again, I don't want us to walk away saying leadership is all about doing hero activities, but I think, you know, doing what you have to do for your client or for the business is part of leadership.
yeah. While we're on this subject, what other so if you could sum doing what you have to do into a value word, what is that value word?
The cheap one's probably integrity. And I said cheap because do what I say I'm going to do and, live up to my commitments. I think there's really, for me, it's a stronger sense of accountability. And I think that one's different and even stronger for me than integrity. And just that my accountability to you as my client or my accountability to you as my person on my team. And I'm going to live up to my commitments. Right. And so I want you to hold me. We talked in the past about Patrick Lencioni and the five dysfunctions of a team and the importance of commitment and then accountability, and that they go in that order, going up the stack. Is that I make commitments, but really when trust is foundational, I trust you, but I also want you to hold me accountable to my commitments. And so I think going up that stack is important to build team. The way it works truly from a leadership perspective is I have to have results. Everybody looks at me and holds me accountable for results. So results is at the top of that stack. And then there's accountability and commitments. And so if that may not be, I mean, if I had 10 minutes to think about it, accountability may not be the word that I would give you, but I think that is the thing is that whether it's, Harry Truman with the buck stops here, or it's right, whatever that is, right? The leader has to say, this is what I'm accountable for. And I'm going to do what it takes. And in the better situation is, and I'm doing the planning up front so I don't have to be a hero. I'm doing
Yeah.
activities today proactively so that we don't get to a crisis moment because that's my accountability.
Yeah.
I don't I don't want us to get to that spot.
I think accountability is a confusing word because the way that you're describing it, I think of honor in the highest sense, almost like duty, you know?
Mhm. And a lot of times we think it's I'm holding you accountable, right?
Yes.
Right,
Like
but
it
in
has
a
a
negative
negative
sense.
context, but I
Yeah.
like the way that your lens is on it.
It should be positive, right? I mean, we use it as a club, but it really should be a positive.
Yeah. Okay, I want to wrap up with some final questions, but what leadership skills do you think, particularly in a world where more of our interactions become transactional through technology, what leadership skills will matter most in a future 5 years from now?
I think we are ever increasing desire, need for one-on-one interaction, relational interaction. And so the leadership skills that we were saying were important 20 years ago are even more important today. And the emotional intelligence, listening skills, empathy, connection. When we live in a world where you're right, I mean, whether it's AI or just automation, right, eliminates so much of what we used to do. And, the transactional thing becomes a baseline that the system can do for us. That true connection, one on one interaction, connection, empathy, sense of worth and feeling is has to be a skill that we as leaders grow and grow. Because no matter where we work or how we work, I still want to be a person, right? And I need to be acknowledged as an individual that does have kids that are at dance recitals or are playing baseball, right? And
Yeah.
the leader doesn't need to hear those words, but needs to interact with it and engage and remember, right? I mean, I think that's a
Remember.
man, if it is so amazing when you have an interaction with somebody and they remember something that you said offhand 6 months ago, or they, ask you a question about something that you just made an offhand comment about, and they stored it away, they remembered it, and they brought it back up and said, what's going on with whatever, right? I mean, and you felt, I mean, Zach Mercurio wrote a book called The Power of Mattering. We may have talked about that in the past, but the power of mattering, in that when I feel seen, heard, and understood, then I'm willing to engage with you, right? I'm willing to work for you and work with you and do things
Hmm.
for you. And
Feeling seen.
I think that skill set as a leader is more important today than ever.